In 1932, the Australian government sent soldiers armed with machine guns to wage war on birds. Not enemy soldiers, not enemy aircraft, birds. Large, flightless, completely indifferent birds. And the birds won. This is the story of the Emu War. And before you write it off as a footnote, understand this. It tells you something real about this country, about the men who fought in it, and about what happens when human arrogance meets something that simply does not care. The setup begins after the First World War. The Australian government, grateful to its veterans and uncertain what to do with them, offered parcels of land across Western Australia. Thousands of men who had survived the Somme, Gallipoli, Beersheba, men who had watched empires bleed, were handed marginal farming land in the Wheatbelt and told to grow wheat. Most had never farmed a day in their lives. Then the Great Depression hit. Wheat prices collapsed. Government subsidies were promised and not delivered. By 1932, a quarter of them had already walked off their land entirely. And then came the emus. Roughly 20,000 of them, driven inland by drought, poured into the Campion district of Western Australia. Emus migrate after breeding season, following rainfall, following water. The cleared farmland, with its water supplies and crops, was to an emu paradise. To the farmers it was the end. The birds smashed through fences, devoured crops, and left gaps wide enough for rabbits to pour through and finish off whatever was left. These men had already lost almost everything. Now a walking, 6-foot-tall, completely unimpressed bird was taking the rest. They went to the government. The government, in what must have seemed like a reasonable decision at the time, agreed to send in the military. 3 men were dispatched. Major Gwynedd Purvis, Wyn Aubrey Meredith, of the Royal Australian Artillery, along with Sergeant McMurray and Gunner O'Halloran, 2 Lewis light machine guns, 10,000 rounds of ammunition. The plan was simple: locate the flock, open fire, done by lunch. The press even sent a cinematographer to capture the triumph. What followed was not a triumph. On the 2nd of November 1932, the Emu War 1932 officially underway. The soldiers encountered roughly 50 emus near Campion. They opened fire. The birds scattered into small groups in every direction, moving fast, making targeted fire almost impossible. A few were killed. The flock was gone. 2 days later, Meredith set an ambush near a dam. Over 1,000 emus moved towards the water. The soldiers waited. The emus closed in. They opened fire, and one of the Lewis guns jammed after just a few rounds. The flock exploded outwards. By the end of the day, the kill count was in the dozens. This is exactly the kind of story that True Blue education exists to tell, the ones history books skip past. If you want more of it, subscribe and stick around. Farmers tried herding the emus with trucks. One truck crashed after hitting a bird at speed. The emus, it turned out, could sprint at nearly 90 kilometers an hour over rough ground. Shooting from a moving vehicle at a moving emu across broken terrain was, in practice, shooting at nothing. Meredith, to his credit, was honest about it. They can face machine guns, he said, with the invulnerability of tanks. They face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks and retreat before wounds that would kill a man. He compared their capacity to absorb damage to the Zulus. He was not entirely wrong. Emus have a double-layered feather system, a dense musculature, and a cardiovascular endurance built for covering 15 miles a day across Australian desert. A glancing round did not stop them. It annoyed them. After 8 days with fewer than 300 confirmed kills, and the national press mocking the operation openly, the Minister of Defence pulled the soldiers out. The House of Representatives debated it. The ornithologist Dominic Saventi described the military's expectations being, in his words, immediately dismantled by what he called emu guerrilla tactics, the flock splitting into uncatchable small units the moment fire began. So who won the Emu War? The answer is not complicated. The emus did. They were still there when the soldiers left. They were still there when the press moved on. The government tried again in November. A second deployment, same result. Further requests for military support in 1934, 1943 and 1948 were all refused. The long-term solution was fencing and bounties. In 6 months of 1934 alone, Western Australian hunters collected bounties on more than 57,000 emus. The machine guns never came back. As for how many emus died in the Emu War, the official military figure was 986, confirmed kills from 9,860 rounds, 10 rounds per emu. Meredith himself admitted those numbers were likely generous. Historians have disputed them since. 20,000 emus arrived. Fewer than 1,000 died. The rest walked back into the Australian landscape exactly as they always had, indifferent, enormous, and completely unbothered. True Blue education covers the stories that deserve a proper telling, the ones that are too strange for textbooks and too real to ignore. If that's your kind of history, hit subscribe. There's plenty more where this came from. The Australian Emu War lasted 38 days. The emus didn't know it was happening. They won anyway.